So what I want to cover today is how to actually turn in some online GDB code in a way that makes it really easy for me to give you full credit for it. Some of these concepts might be new. And so if there's any questions, even though I'm recording this, no one's going to know who did. Type it into chat or open up your mic and ask the question. So the instructions here were to basically go in and make some code that would have people try to guess a secret number and to give them some clues so that they would know higher or lower. So you'll notice in here that I want to see a sample run, and I also want to make sure you have your date, name, and sessioner at the top. So I gave you a couple of things as starting points, and one of them was what I would call an imperfect sample. And in particular for this imperfect sample, the number right here is actually going to give you a random number in the range from 1 to 150, which isn't what I asked for, but it got you close. There's also the line in here that you don't need to have. In fact, I don't know if this would cause a problem if you tried using it in online GDB. So following this standards that we've been watching on online GDB, this pre-compiled header is not something you're going to want to include. The other thing that's close, but not the way I want you to do it, is this is using a cin statement rather than a scanf statement. So it was really close. The other document out there that I put out there for an example is in the instructions. We'll get to that in a minute. It was to help you figure out how to get a truly random or a truer random number. So as I said, this is the preferred method. In a private comment, there's a link to online GDB. And when I click on this here, it's actually going to go to the code that was turned in by the student, which is just about perfect. But the first thing I notice when I open it up is I don't see the name of the student at the top. Small thing. But it would just helps to you have to understand, I may be grading late at night or early in the morning, or as I'm sitting on a bench somewhere outside, and it makes it easier if I can see your name. I'm coaching you so that you maximize the opportunity, you get 100%. I know you know who your name is, and I know you know what you were doing at the time, but I want you to be in the habit of including that as a comment. Now, I can't change the code here. This is not code that I wrote, and if I tried to type here, it's not going to let me. So here's a new vocabulary word. By the way, I'm going to run this just to show you that it works. Okay, I'm going to click on run, and it's going to say, all right, there's a number between 1 to 100. Somebody give me a number to try. Anybody. I see public chats firing up with some numbers. 12, 32, 4. I already know that's not the number. I know what the number is already. It's a random number, but I know what it is. Stephanie, do you know what it is? Did you notice it's the same number every time? It's not 55, it's 84. Watch. If I come in here and I type in 84 and I press enter, I got the number on the first try. Yeah. Here's why. And this is something that I put in some of the comments, is that I put in that yours works, and you're going to get the same number every time, but we'll go over that in class Thursday, which is today, to talk about how to actually make it a different number than the same one every time. So I want to explain kind of a dirty little secret of computer programming that might make sense when you look at this example. And that is that a random number isn't really random. It's a randomized selection of numbers, but it's going to follow the same pattern every time unless you do something special. So I can run this again, and it's going to, guess what? It's going to be 84 again. And every time I run this, it's going to be 84 because it's not using a reseeded number. In other words, I haven't said, okay, random, I want you to get a whole new set of numbers based on this starting point. So I drew a picture to kind of talk about this. No, it wasn't a waste of time. It's just that I haven't taught you this part yet. And this is like just-in-time training. I'm leading you right up to something and then letting you see, oh, it doesn't quite work right. Hopefully people are going to ask questions like, Mr. Judge, I thought I did a random number, and it comes up with the same one every time. Or if you didn't, I'm just going to throw it out there. That's how this code's going to work. So when you roll dice, it's almost like having, I guess, a loaded set of dice where there's a little bit of weight on one side. It's going to be biased to one combination. And we'll use random in our games programming, much like you might have seen in board games. It might have been a little like, so you flick the arrow and it spins around and stops at a color. It's considered a randomizer. Could be a D20 in a Dungeons and Dragons that you're going to roll. So in order to do this, when we run random the way that is being used in the example, it's what's called a pseudo-random. It's like, not quite really random, but it will give you a variety of values. And that's why in a game like a Pac-Man console game, you can use a pattern. Because they may have used randoms, but it used the same series every time. So to really seed or start out with a fresh starting point, the trick that we use is we use the time on the machine. So for a gambling machine, and actually in Illinois, you're going to find a lot of games programmers that are working in the gambling industry. These poker games or whatever it is that people go into, do gaming at a bar. You see the signs as you're driving down the road, and when you were younger, you probably went, gaming, they got gaming at that bar as you're driving by, or at that restaurant, you didn't know. But this video poker and video gaming is all using games programming. And if the numbers were a pattern, then people would be able to figure it out, and they would know how to bet. So you want to use something that's not always going to be the same number, and we're going to look at that right away. So without further ado, I'm going to jump back into online GDP. Now here's what I want to do. Is I'm going to actually click on this button at the top that you may not have seen before. And this is an industry term. We're going to make a fork. We're going to deviate from this like the road takes a curve, and we're not going to continue on the same path. So when I click on this, it's going to make a copy of the code. Stephanie still has her version. She shared it with me, but I have a derivative or a one-off from it. And so now I can actually make changes. I could actually say, reminder, need name and session and the date and the function that it does. So now I can share this with everybody right now. I could actually save this and call it non. So if you don't have a guessing game, that's why I asked if I'm using yours as an example. You're one of the 26 people that turned it in. There's 24 that haven't yet. All right, so you're way ahead of that, and yours works. It does everything that I wanted to, and missing your name on there is very minor. It's still a work. All right, it's still a work. I'm just trying to make it easier so you get credit for it. So this is going to be a good example of a random guessing game. This is a work. This is exactly what I expect a student to do. Hi, David. So I'm going to, now that I've saved it, I can share it here. And I'm going to copy this. Now, when I paste this into online chat, it's going to give everybody access to a copy of this code. What I'd like you to do is consider putting this code on one side of the window and your own version of it, because you're going to need to fork it, right? Sounds funny. That's fine. You can go back to your own code if you want to. But if you don't have a truly random number, I want to show you how to do it. It's all of one line of code, and Stephanie's program will give her a random number. So I'll show you that, just setting the stage here, giving everybody something that'll work. All right, I'm going to get this out of the way in case somebody's half screening me and they've got me on the one side. I want to make sure they can actually see what the code is. And to get this one line of code, I'm going to go back to the assignment that's in Google Classroom. In the instructions, next to the imperfect sample, you're going to find this thing that says RAND, C++ reference. And if you click on that link, it's going to bring you to this page here that talks about random. And remember I told you the example, it had a random number in a range of 1 to 150. Do you remember me telling you about that earlier? I'm looking for head nods. No one's camera's on. Thank you. At least I got a yes. Right here, again, this is telling you pseudo-random. That's what I was just talking about. And if you look at the first sample here, it says, give me a variable called 1. It's going to be assigned a random value. And I want you to use this function called modulus. Basically, I want you to find in a possible set of values 100 different possible values. Well, the first possible value is 0, and it goes up from there. So the range starts at 0, and it only goes to 99. The very next line, it tells you exactly the line of code you need to use. This plus 1, it shifts things. So instead of it being 0 to 99, everything goes over by 1, and it's 1 to 100. So the plus 1 is important, and the 100 is important. And that sets the range, and it moves everything over. The third example shows if, for example, you wanted to be interested in people that were born starting in 1985 for the next 30 years, this third variable is being set to a range that's the variable that's in that range. So it doesn't have to start at 0 or 1. You can set your offset to some other value. And that could be, all right, everybody at the start of the game is going to get a predetermined, somewhat random amount of money within a certain range. So this has got a lot of applicability besides just pick a random number and try to guess it. So scrolling through, and I'm doing this as an example because I want you to see that if you went to this source, you actually got a working example of what I wanted you to do. Not because I want you to copy and paste it and turn it in and be done, but because I don't want you to struggle. And I want you to understand that I'm going to leave breadcrumbs of information out there for you that you can use, and I want you to try them. And if you understand them, it's fine to turn them in. But if you have a question, please ask. So if I look at this, there's one line in here that's not in Stephanie's. It's line number 11. And what that's doing is it's saying I want you to seed the random number using the time on the computer. Time on the computer is not just it's 1:32 in the afternoon. It goes down to the seconds and then the microseconds, and then there's actually an internal clock that is spinning so fast that in order to get that value be the same from time of hitting enter to time of hitting enter, it's so improbable. I mean, nothing's impossible, but it's so improbable that it gives you really a much better version of a random number. And I won't get 84 again if I try it with this line added. So all you have to do there is copy that line of code and paste it in the fork that we made, and you'll get a random number. So I'm going to do that now. I'm on line number 11 right here, and I'm going to highlight it, and I'm going to right click and say copy. Then I go into the code, and where you put it is important. All right. So I'm going to put it just before I set up this variable called rando. Awesome variable name. I know exactly where you're coming from. So now that I've done that, I'm going to run the same game again. This time, odds are it's not 84 because I've now have randomized it, but just because, I got conditioned that it was always going to be 84, now it's saying lower. And for those of you who haven't thought about a strategy, if you take the range of possible values and divide it in half, in this case, 41 would be about halfway through. So I should have guessed lower, so I could just do something like 20. Is that working for you? Wasn't. Try it again and see if it is. More than 20, 10. Congrats, I wasted my time. Now, this finished. I got to the solution. It wasn't 84, all because of that one line. Steph, if you want to become the presenter, we can look at your line of code and see if you're getting an error message, or it could be where you put it. Error, assignment of function, void srand, unsigned int. Okay, would you be so kind as to share your screen with me? I'll stop sharing mine, and we'll take a look together. And this is awesome. This is exactly what I want, is I want to be able to help people. Wow, that takes all of about a half a second for people to start writing. So Stephanie, you should have a new option at the bottom where you can do what you normally with turning your microphone on. Perfect. And it always does this when you first share your screen. So it looks like it's completing about line number 18. That's interesting because it works for me. I'm going to move your screen just a second to compare it to mine. Oh. So we're back into the ever disappearing world when you do that. Yeah, you can just keep your screen up and I'll tell you what's going on. It's like, wait, I want to see what he's doing, but I can't because I need to stay on my screen. SRAND. Okay, you've got an equal sign in there. So in line 18, you've got an equal sign there. Do me a favor and remove the equal sign after the D and before the open space there. Okay, let's try that version. It's 84. That was a good example because we found it by working together. And I'll tell you, students, I'm going to be honest. It is so often that I or one of my colleagues might actually have an error that you look at it over and over and you can't figure it out. And then eventually somebody looks at it that has just a different set of eyes. So the saying we have is if you have a different set of eyes looking at it, you will probably get it figured out easier than if you try to do it on your own. All right. I got myself confused and now I can't find where my big blue button is, they call it. Oh, did I stop it? Hopefully I didn't just end it. Let me see. Do I have another one open? Big blue button. Here it is. There you guys are. Yep, there we are. All right, got to move this over here. Apparently my session 2 was still open until that very minute. Okay, you can see me. All right, so everybody should have a version available to them that can very easily do random numbers. Now, we were talking about how to turn things in. And Stephanie, like I said, a credit on that, okay? And if you get an error message like that, you send me a message. If I'm online or whatever, I'll try to help you through it. You can also collaborate with other people. Just taking a look here, we got about 18 people online right now, which is great. All right, so I'm going to put into public chat, if I didn't already. Did I give you guys a fork that you could use here? Pardon my reference again to fork. Oh, you wanted to show me your cow and UFO? You want to be presenter again? Is this something that we need? I can stop recording this. I've gone through the part I wanted to. I'm going to stop recording. Give myself a mouse pointer. Oh, I'm on the wrong screen to do this. Got to be on this window. I won't be able to use my screen pointer as I wanted. I'm sorry. All right, so at the top here, there is, I'll move my head there in a circle. See the corner there, that little clipboard icon? If I click on that, I'm going to get a message that it's copied to the clipboard. And now what I want to do is put it within my listing. So I'm going to come to the bottom of here. And if I could type, I would type in this /**, which is divide by multiply. You could think of it that way. And then paste the output. And at the bottom, I have to do it in the opposite order, multiply, divide by. So now I don't have to run everyone's program. I can see their output works. This makes it very easy. I go to give Oswin credit. I don't have to run it because I can see it's there. And I can go right through my rubric that you can see. Documentation is at the top. It works with random. It's got a story or a setting. And he submitted the format properly. So he's got 10 out of 10 points, and I can just go ahead and return his work to him. His name is clicked, and I can click on return, and he gets notified that he got 10 out of 10. So if you turn the work in and I got a rubric, I can grade it really quickly if you got the work in the right order, and you know right away you got 10 out of 10, which is great. I want everyone to find success. So did that demo make sense on how to actually turn your work in? I would like to bring up a poll, and I also have to look at chat. Okay, back, gotta go. Australian cow. Yeah, getting a lot of stuff here. I'm gonna bring up a poll. All right. Do you get what you need to turn in? Yes and no. Some people are saying no already. If you don't know, say no. There's a few people that don't get it. If you don't know what to turn in, let me know. Okay, there's one person that didn't vote or whatever, but I'm gonna guess that means the people. Wow, that takes all of about a half a second. People must just be moving their mouse around just with hopes that I'm going to actually give them the opportunity here. I'm going to publish the polling results here. And 12 people do, but about 5 don't know what to turn in. So we're going to look for a minute at the instructions. Now, if you're comfortable going to work on this now and you already know what you're going to do, you can bounce. I'm here for questions. I'll be here to answer your questions. Okay? For those who are not clear on what to turn in, I'm going to go over it again a little slower, and I'm going to encourage you, if you have a question, open your mic, type it in chat, and let me know what questions you might have. Okay? Some people are going to go. Bye. All right, I'm going to go back to my screen, and what I'm going to be sharing here is this customize version. I'm going to use right here. So to find this assignment, you're going to be in the Google Classroom, and you can look at the calendar. So what we're talking about is this assignment here, week 5, day 4, customize your random number guessing game. The instructions are going to tell you what I'm looking for. I want a truly random number, not a pseudo-random. So yesterday's link, the one from yesterday, shows you how to do a random number. You can use that as an example. I also, if you look in the chat, I gave you a branch where you can get your own copy of the code. And then you can fork from that. You can save your own copy. So when you're working in online GDB, which I don't know if I have a tab available to jump to. I don't see one here, so I'll open a new one for us. If I jump into online GDB, what you're going to want to do is fork it. Right there, click on fork, which gives you your own version. Make your changes. When you're done with your changes, you're going to save it, give it a name, and once you've saved it, then you can actually do a share, copy this link, and then you're going to enter that in as a private comment in Google Classroom. So that's been saved. I got the link copied. I'm going to close it, and so I'm going to paste this one into the private chat as well. It's actually a different link, but it's the same set of code. I didn't make any changes. Excuse me. So you're going to turn that in that way. Okay, make sure that you include the output as a comment. If that's something you want to go over, I will. Make sure your name, date, session, and description are at the top. And make sure you have some context or story. So instead of just, I'm thinking of a number from 1 to 100, come up with some context, some idea. There's a locked door, and you're going to have to guess the number to get the door open. Or there's a magician or a wizard, and the wizard says, you have to figure something out. Come up with some kind of a clue system. Okay, there's some freedom there. Use printf statements to kind of make the logic feel different. All right, that's pretty much a wrap on what I wanted to go through and then give you time to do it. However, some of you that are online right now, I would like to offer what I'm going to call office hours. So again, if you're good, you know what to do, you can bounce, and I'm going to stay online for questions. And anybody who's got questions, I'm going to encourage you to go ahead. You can share your screen with me. We can debug code.